Welcome to the Copper State Marching Podcast, sponsored by Arizona Marching Band Association, AZMBA. My name is Martin Hebda.
Hello, everyone. I'm Matt Kozacek, band director at Campo Verde High School and AZMBA president.
Well, band camp is done. The school year has begun. Hope everyone's feeling good and they got plenty of rest.
Yeah, band camp is over. Thank goodness. It's always fun, but gosh, it's just a lot of time. So we are excited to dive in. We're going to be focusing on rehearsal structure today.
Yes, we're inviting in Renee Shane-Boyd from Catalina Foothills and Ben Sampayan from Perry High School, just to kind of share some of our different practices. I always learn so much from others, so I'm looking forward to this conversation. And before we invite them on, let's give a quick shout out to our sponsors. AZMBA would like to thank our sponsors: the Academy Drum and Bugle Corps, Arizona Cardinals Football Club, The Band Shop, Bravwell Video Creations, Cut Time, Encore Gifts, Instrumental Music Center, MacPack, Milano's Music, Music Celebrations International, Music for All, MVP Apparel, Pieces of Flair, schoolfund.org, Show Dots, UDB, Uplifting Promotions, Vic Firth, and Yamaha. Thank you for supporting AZMBA. All right, so we welcome Renee and Ben. Thank you for coming on the show today. We want to jump right in. We're talking about the rehearsal structure, and it's so much to talk about, but what is kind of like your typical marching band rehearsal, schedule like during a season?
Well, during our Tuesday night rehearsals, which is the primary time we rehearse, we run from 5:30 to 9, and our first hour, or even more like hour and a half sometimes, will be visual basics, plus then our music rehearsal, our in-place music rehearsal. That's our time to work with our full band together. And then we move probably in the next half hour or even hour to learning any new drill and cleaning anything, just depending on where we are in the season. Of course, it's a lot more cleaning later in the season, learning new drill. And then we usually do 2 full runs at the end if we can.
Yeah, we look kind of similar. I start with about 30 minutes of dedicated stretch PT warm up. I have the students kind of take the lead on that one. It's kind of their time to flow into rehearsal, get themselves in the right mindset. Then we start going into visual basics. We flex that time. It typically is around 45 minutes, but it can be shorter or longer depending upon where we are in the season. Right now, we're a little early, and so we start moving heavy next step into music ensemble and trying to refine the music book. And then as we progress, we'll switch outside, go into the more visual stuff, into drill, and then try to end the evening very, very similar to Renee with a couple runs, make the kids feel, or allow them the opportunity to feel that they accomplished something solid. I think the last thing they do is the first thing they remember, and so I want to send them home knowing that they achieved something.
Yeah, Matt, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, we very similar. I think most programs will start with visual that I've ever heard of, just because I think you want to make sure your music warm up is right before you're going to be doing music and ensemble and all that kind of stuff. It would be kind of weird to do a music warm up, do some music block, and then go into visual, and then not play for an hour and then go back. So I think just in general, I think most what I'm hearing from everybody here is just visual is kind of the place to start, and then build into music, and then build into ensemble after that. And the amount of time probably just depends, right? I mean, on the time of year. So Ben was just saying it's very different now than it will be. So let's maybe talk about that. Like in August, approximately how much time, and then in September, and then approximately how much time, and then October, approximately how much time. What would you guys think about that?
I'm big on a calendar, and so I can go down and I can figure out exactly what we're doing. If I pull up my schedule from last week, we spent about 45 minutes in visual, And then we spent the better portion of the evening. I do a 3-hour rehearsal from 5 to 8 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so we spent the better part of an hour and a half, hour 45 on music. Um, that's the musician side. Color guard follows something very similar, where they spend a good portion of the time in warm up and fundamentals. You can kind of blur that with visual, and then when we're working on our music stuff, they're working either on choreo or little small projects. So right now it's very very music towards the end, but a solid start with visual. I think that visual is the most unfamiliar for a lot of the high school students. And so to get that out of the way at the start of the rehearsal kind of breaks some barriers. And then it needs to be consistent. So we do visual pretty much non-negotiable the entire season. I might cut a music like warm up super short because they have years, hopefully, of good pedagogical music instruction that they can rely on to warm up themselves. But they don't have that for visual. In August, it's about 50-50. Maybe not, sorry, not August. In September, it's about 50-50. So getting into October, really getting most of the show out there. And late October, early November, it really comes in maximizing basics, running through the repertoire of their routine. And it's more about their headspace, in my opinion, than it is about their execution. Is can we get them to achieve consistently what they've done at some point during the season? So we're maximizing reps at the end of the season. That can be reps in captions or reps in full ensemble, but there's a lot less like visual basic time or music basic time. It's let's get this again and again.
Mm-hmm. Renee, what about you?
Since we've moved to a more dance-based approach to our visuals, I think that we pretty much keep that all year. Our visuals are something that will stay around even if we're in a hurry to get to drill. And what we probably spend less time doing in terms of music as we move through the season is doing it in a concert arc. When we first start the season, we do our warm-ups and our music rehearsals in a concert arc with our pit and with our battery. And as we move through the season and we feel like we've got those movements locked in place, we move to being on the field and doing those and learning drills. So that's the place that will decrease for us a little bit more as we go.
Do you guys throw in like tracking at all in your programs and do a lot of tracking across the fields on the track, things like that?
Well, I was gonna say that too. So kind of like all you guys, we always start with a visual block of some kind. I feel like we never want to just say this isn't important unless there's something really weird in the day. We want to start with some kind of visual, and the first thing that we do is always our press play. It's a 3-minute body warm up that everybody knows. Actually, we just learned ours last Thursday, and it takes a little bit longer at the beginning because we're going to refine some of those things, but we start with that. We even do that at the show site. We press play and everybody knows what to do, but some kind of fundamental marching before we go into the music part of it. Something that we do that is slightly different that I wanted to bring up before I go to the tracking, Matt, that you brought up is our schedules look slightly different. We do Tuesdays and Thursdays from 6 to 9, and they're slightly different on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And that's based off of kind of the staff that I have. So I have a little bit more music heavy staff on Tuesdays and a little bit more heavy visual staff on Thursdays. So I try to maximize the feedback that they can get that way. Also, where you're rehearsing plays a big play in that. So in our case, if we're in the stadium, that's really the only place I can work on balance and blend of the ensemble. And then on the practice field, I don't do any dynamic balance blend stuff because it sounds so much different than in a stadium. So that plays into effect. So I think there's a lot of different things, but I think we're all kind of in the same point of you don't want to just say zero visual. That's not important, that we always have to do that. Matt, with your tracking question, and I'm sorry for talking so much here, we actually moved to pretty early in the season. We don't hardly ever do a standstill warm up. We're usually tracking during our warm up, so they're used to getting their feet going and all of that. Obviously, when we're tuning, we're standing still and tuning. But when we do our articulation exercises and our flow exercises and our Remingtons and things like that, we tend to tend to do those on the move because that's the goal, is get the feet out of the sound. When we split up into sub captions or brass and woodwinds, then we'll kind of arc it up there.
We do our tracking a lot during the day. During the first 3 months of the year, August, September, October, we rehearse marching band during the day in 4 separate classes, which has some of its own challenges. But that's when we will do a lot of tracking, very similar to what Martin said. We don't do as much of our warm up in tracking, but we do a lot of the chunks of the show.
Do you have like music rehearsals separate, or do you just have the night rehearsals, like the 2 night rehearsals?
So we have a Monday sectional from 2:30 to 4, and then we have 2 nightly rehearsals from 5 to 8. The marching band does not meet during the day, but students are required to have a concert band class of some sort during the day. So that can be like a concert band, our symphonic band, our percussion ensemble, our jazz band. So they're taking music instruction during the day. It is not as much time. We used to do a 0-hour practice every single day before school, but there's a lot of scheduling issues with that one, trying to create time for the students to participate in as many things as possible. So we try to blend, we pretty much do everything every day in very various amounts. Tracking for us, less so, I would say. We do move with the feet a lot. Our drum line likes to track a lot. I get the winds to track with them occasionally. It can be hard with some drill when they're all doing stuff that's a little different. So we do a lot of marking time, getting the feet moving, just in coordination.
Yeah, in talking about the rehearsal flow, are there things that you guys do to change things up throughout the year to make it not as mundane? I know that my students, like in August, it's like August is the month that's brutal because there's no games, there's no competitions, anything like that. The luster of marching band starting again is over. Like July is always fun and exciting, but August is tough. So what are some things that you do to like change it up and make rehearsal fun and exciting for the kids?
Well, in August, we're just trying to get our drill on, and we do our best to get as much of our drill on by because we started participating in the BOA activity at the end of September. Our calendar is very front loaded in terms of what we're doing on weekends and things. So we do plan some fun activities into like if we have a Friday evening rehearsal, we have a cosmic bowling afterwards. But because of the limited amount of rehearsal time we have, we are pretty set in what we do.
Mm-hmm.
The rehearsal, we want the kids to enjoy it, but we try to plan the fun separately, I guess.
I tend to rely on my student leadership team to set the pace and the vibe of rehearsal. So especially heading into mid-August, it's, hey, what can you do to be the person that brings the energy? Because we all know the idea, like one bad apple spoils the bunch, but the opposite's also true. Like if you have one person that's just being a rock star, bringing the energy from a place that's honest, like you can't lie about it. People smell that a mile away. How can they be honest about it and be dedicated to the goal? We do spirit nights, fun, little engaging things. Maybe we'll have ice cream after. There'll be time with fundraisers. We just had one with Culver's recently, and just trying to keep things, novel's the wrong word, but keep things changing around the central concept. Like the main things we do don't change, but how we approach them and how we leave them, we can change those up all day long. Renee, I'm curious, how does cosmic bowling work with your kids? Like, are they, my students, I don't know if they're bowlers.
Mine are bowlers. We go, there's a bowling alley that's not too far from our school, and it's not a school-sponsored activity. We went back and forth through that. So basically, they get themselves there, but they sign up ahead on a Google form so we know how many, and then we reserve it through the lanes, and they just come in. Usually, we do some kind of theme thing. So if they dress up in whatever the theme costume is, then they get a prize from our band council runs that, and so it's fun. It lasts a couple hours. It's late because you usually can't start it till like 9 o'clock at night, but it's it's still fun for them. And I think as long as we keep those kind of things in there, then they'll buy into we have to work during this time and get it done. It's a
Doing the
slog sometimes, but
It's late
doing
for us,
the
but not for them. That's
yeah,
not late for them.
yeah,
I know on a Friday night they're up till like 2 o'clock in the morning anyway.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
I was thinking August is not a tough time for us as much as September. Those last 2 weeks going into fall break are usually the toughest ones because it just feels like they've been at it for so long. In August, they're seeing a lot of changes in the show and like, oh wow, we got another movement on, or we just added music to this. Like they're seeing those gains quite a bit. The way we tend to switch it up is we just try to make sure we're not doing the same thing in the rehearsal for too long, I guess you can say. If you're adding drill, you're adding drill, and that's kind of what that night is. But in comparison to like 20 years ago, like you can do, all right, we're just doing some music, or we're just doing tracking, or we're just doing visual basics, or we're doing body movement or choreography. There's so many different things that you can layer in that all of a sudden you feel like rehearsal's just over. It just kind of flies by.
yeah. So Renee, Martin and I talk about this all the time because we're getting a little bit older. Ben, not so much, but we're getting we're getting a little bit older, and one of the things that we have listed on here is like we learn a lot. I think as we get older, and we're like, why did we do it that way, and why did we structure it that way? So any like bits of advice that you have over the years, or things you've learned, you're like, the younger you would never do.
Well, I think when we first started marching band, I felt there were these visual things that we had to teach every year, obliques, different things like that you never really learn. And we did about haces and and we learned drag turns. And for several years, I thought we had to go to band camp and we had to learn every single one of those. And then as we got a little bit more skilled in our drill design and knew what we were going to need in the season, we gradually began taking some of those out, and they learned commands and responses and all of that. And so maybe it's just a change in style more than anything. But now I really do a lot of backward design. We know what we want the kids to know in terms of music, and we know what we want the kids to know pretty much in terms of visual. With the help of my visual staff, I have a consistent person that I've worked with for like 18 years, and I love it when these kids do drum corps because often they'll return as alumni and then they can help us with the best way to teach those kind of visual things. And now as I mentioned, we started actually this year for the most we've ever done with a very dance centered, like just approach to everything. And we still have some of the basics, but there's it's just forward, backwards, and slide, basically, so much less. And so I've learned from my staff who are right on top of it, what we're going to do and what we're going to plan. I would say that's probably the biggest change, because we do really look at what we need to have by the end of the season and plan for that over time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find myself using a lot more dance terms as well. Like we don't even say, attention position really anymore. We say first position, and so it's just so interesting how dance is just infiltrating the marching activity.
I find myself telling the students the why so much more now than when I first started. I'm a firm believer of that really helps get the students to, they understand, I tell them the structure of the rehearsal, and I think back to if I'm going into a day of in-service, do I just want to be like, okay, you're going to be in the library for 3 hours? Or do you want to know what are some of the things that we're doing? So I try to give the students a little bit of that structure as well.
Yeah, I think that helps a lot. I think creating smarter marchers, I learned that from Sandra, who's our visual person. When she's instructing the kids at the beginning, she tells them the why, and she wants them to make decisions. And I really think that idea of creating a smarter marcher, a smarter student leader helps you a lot.
I wanted to bring up a specific time during a rehearsal. So, we're all in rehearsal or we're up in the box at some point and you're doing ensemble, right? So you've got the drill on, you've got the music, and you're just kind of cleaning through something like you're doing, middle of the season and you're doing ensemble. So the whole band is out there. I want to talk about student feedback. So you just finish a rep. What does it kind of look like after that rep is done and you need to give some feedback to the students, whether it be what they did or assess how they did or getting ready to do the next chunk? What does that look like in one of your typical rehearsals?
Well, at least for me, when we finish, I have a kind of a saying and a rule that when we finish a rep, we listen. So the first thing they're doing is they're listening up to the box or listening to the staff member that's on the field to try to get that feedback right away. Because sometimes the longer you sit with it, the more you try to code it, create it, coax it into something that might be more than it needs to be. It can just be left foot. That might be the only feedback that they need. You don't need a long paragraph. Um, and so I try to do a couple reps from the box, and I tell the staff members we're going to do like 2 in a row. Hold your comments. And we rep it twice, and I think it gives the students an opportunity to go, if they mess it up the first time, oh, that's an oopsie, that's a boo-boo, and they can fix it the second time. And then the staff doesn't have to address the one person that may have missed something on 3, or the one count is out of place. So it gives students an opportunity to kind of step up into which rep is better for them. And then it gives the staff members more information to work with. It gives me more information. And I can look down and see, say Johnny missed it the first time, but got it the second time. Okay. Is that a trend? Was that a one-off? And, trying to really just use that time for feedback. I try to keep everything short. I'm maybe not doing that right now, but one of my things is 2 to 3 things, 2 to 3 short things before an opportunity to try again. If you can keep it short, keep it simple, then you just need to try it again. Trying to avoid the let me talk at you for 15 minutes and then let's run it back, and then be surprised why all of a sudden now everyone's out of tune, and so it's that's kind of the big thing is the listening thing. The one thing that I found helpful in the back a quick succession is when I was very, very super young, I would just try to give them all the information all the time. And then it was like silent on their part. But now we call them to set. The drum majors will call them to set. So giving autonomy to the drum majors, making sure that they have opportunity and license to make some decisions. The drummers will announce what part of the music we're doing, like measure 1 to 55 set. The students will call it back, and then they'll start the run. It's led to a lot less what was that moments, and we can create really, really fast paced rehearsal because they're keying in and getting instruction all the time, and so we can balance that with the feedback: fast, pause, reflect, fast, pause, reflect, maybe switch and change. I'm hoping that speaks to what you're asking, but I think it's pace of play, and it's making sure they hear what they need to hear.
Yeah, I think that's really smart, and I've always thought that, like, especially with younger staff members, it's just a lot of times it's just too much information. They just want to. You did this, and you did this wrong, and you did this wrong, and you did this wrong, and they're going over this laundry list of things. And really, what the kids need is they just need more reps, right? I mean, they need more opportunity. So the more you're talking, the less they're working. And really, like after about 10, 15 seconds of you talking, they're not listening anymore, anyways. So it's just trying to, like you said, keep that, keep the message short. Focus on your posture this time, do it again, focus on your initiation, do it again. And the reps oftentimes will solve the problems, not the talking. The talking at them doesn't solve the problems. The rep that solves the problem. So I wholeheartedly agree.
I agree too. I have as few people in the box as possible. Obviously what you're working on during that ensemble, what the focus is determines, it's usually me and my lead visual. So my visual caption head, and then my lead percussion, which is the one that really is good with making sure phasing and timing things are all set. So if there's ever any kind of phasing things, then like he'll be the first to speak because we put that as the priority. But we kind of go for two people talking when it's done, and you only want 2 main points. And sometimes it may not be me, and that's fine. You know what I mean? Because like if it's depending on what we're working on, and I usually focus a lot on the music side of it. But if there's a timing thing with the Dakota hits that, and then our Viz person hits it, that's fine. We can move on. We have the same thing where box gets first go. Students are quiet. Then we give time for field. So when we're done, we'll say, okay, field, 10 seconds. And then they say their things. And then we'll do the reset or something like that. Ben, I like the idea of just doing 2 reps in a row with nothing in between. I think that's something we may incorporate some this year because I think that's got a lot of positives. Renee?
Yeah, I like that too. Especially this year at band camp, we tried to give them more reps. We have a large freshman class, and the staff would look and say they just need to rep it again, as opposed to we do give a fair amount of feedback. Our procedure when we stop is that they first they look, and then they adjust, and then they do the dot, which gives them a chance to assess. And I think that's an important piece of it as well, in addition to everything you said. And I'm usually the only one in the box, and sometimes a visual person, and sometimes I want to say too much, and sometimes I'm not sure what caused that, so we'll rep it again.
Sometimes when I don't know what happened, I just ask them,
Yeah.
do you need information or do you need that again?
Oh, good.
It's like we can go from there and just getting a general sense. Sometimes the students know more than we do what they need, at least on the field. We can see all the things falling into place. We hope they fall faster.
Yeah. Sometimes they think they know more than they do.
Isn't that human nature feelings? But yeah.
Well, yeah. Renee, I have the exact same feeling you do. We have a large new class this year, freshman class, and throughout camp, I have noticed that the reps are the reps are the things that you need, and they just need more chances, and then eventually it'll come. And they're trying; they just don't know how yet.
One of the things I wanted to throw out there that I learned from Roberto, if you guys are running from the box, that's really helped our rehearsal flow is just having my own metronome up in the box. And like when they start a rep, I start my met at the tempo that it should be, right? Like, cause they'll start with a met on the field, but then when we cut the met out, I keep my met on up in the box. And Roberto taught me this, that way, where they're rushing, where they're dragging, and where things are happening. It's like you can tell 3 measures in, they start to drag because your met's getting ahead of them. They can't hear it, but you can hear it, and that's been really, really helpful from a timing perspective for our program.
Yeah, I like that. Moving to kind of like the planning for rehearsal, like things that you do prior, what does that look like? So obviously, you've got kind of an idea for the entire year. Like I have a pacing calendar of what we want to do, but so we're going into a week. Let's say, all right, I got a week of school. I got a Tuesday and Thursday. When does the planning happen for both of those, or even more specific, what does that system look like for you?
My planning tends to happen on the weekend before, and then I get it out to staff and student leaders. And it's just based on first having, I call it like a program calendar. So I know what's probably similar to your pacing calendar. So I know where I want to be by each show. And then I just try to stay in pace with that.
For me, we do Tuesday, Thursday, and I said it before, we try to do a little bit of everything every day. And so trying to there's some parts of their rehearsal that don't change. And so staff can expect that you're going to have warm-up time. And they have a lot of licensure in that warm-up time to do what they want to do. I'm not sitting there with, I need this exercise this many times, this one this many times. I'm really just looking for, okay, can we increase the effectiveness of this technique? And I'll put that in the schedule. And how they get to that is kind of their pathway. And I give them, we'll have 30 minutes. You have 30 minutes to achieve this thing. You can get there however you want, but I'm really just looking for this one thing. In terms of when the schedule goes out, we do Tuesday rehearsal and a Thursday rehearsal. The Monday is sectional, so that's student led. So I give that to them Monday, like Monday morning. The student leaders start to know what they should be planning for the day. Let it sit for the afternoon. We do a lot of the same kind of process on Monday, so they're building their process with their peers, and that bleeds into the Tuesday and the Thursday. If I'm really, really ahead, Tuesday's rehearsal schedule will come out Monday. And if I'm kind of behind, it'll come out Tuesday, a couple hours before rehearsal. Here's what the play-by-play is. I send a I use a Google Sheet, honestly, and I have color guard, winds, percussion, and battery. So front ensemble and battery kind of broken out, and they're all planned and chunked into 5-minute increments. And so you can know what you're going to be doing. You should know where you're supposed to be. Sometimes we'll start in the band room, and so I tell them that, hey, roll calls in the band room, or the other time it's at the top of the schedule. Their responsibility is to check where they're supposed to be. Oh, roll calls taking place at the stadium field. We need to make sure that everything is there at 5 so that we're ready to start. Same thing with Thursday. So that if I'm early, it'll come out Wednesday. Because a lot of the stuff is the same, repeated, like structure wise, it comes down to like, how are we changing this little bit of instruction? What's the next step? So there's less of a need for it to be super far in advance. I'm kind of lucky with facilities that they're predictable enough to make that happen.
I was going to make that comment. I mean, I don't do it a ton in advance because I feel like I'm always told, oh yeah, the stadium is closed today or something like that. I try to get it out a day before, kind of like you do, but like for me to know exactly where I'm going to be is always difficult. I'm thinking about what I did with my staff. So I sent out kind of like our goal for the week. Like, this is generally speaking what our goal is for Tuesday, and this is what our goal is for Thursday. Whether it's like Thursday, we're going to be putting drill on or whatever. I talk a lot to some of the specific staff members that I have. So as I was knowing that Thursday is going to be a drill day, I'll talk to Sierra, who's my visual lead. Okay, how much time would you like for a visual thing and versus drill, and get those times from her, and then I kind of craft my schedule off of that. When we're in the middle of rehearsal, so if this is like in the middle of the season and we're on a Tuesday, right? And I have an idea of what I want to do Thursday, but I don't have the schedule scripted out yet. I don't quite go down as much as like 5 minutes, but I go by like the block. So I'll be like, all right, so from 6 until 6:20, that's going to be our visual basics time. And then 6:20 to 7, maybe, the next sort of thing. But what I do is I'll talk with some of my leads and find out what their needs are. Right. So during rehearsal on Tuesday, I'll talk to my percussion lead and be like, what are some things that you need? And he may be like, well, before we start adding winds to the drill, for part 2, I need some percussion ensemble time. And we do a lot of time where it's just battery and pit running and getting stuff to where they've got that comfortable before I try putting the winds on there. And he may say we need only 20 minutes. We may need 50 minutes. Who knows? So I find that out, talk to my color guard instructor to see if they need field time, because sometimes they need to be on the field alone as well. And talk to some of my visual leads, and I got a good handle on the music leads. So throughout the rehearsal, I get feedback from all of them. And during the downtimes, I kind of craft out what Thursday schedule is going to look like on Tuesday. After our final run through on Tuesday night, the staff always when the band is circling up and I'm done talking to them and the student leadership's talking, I talk to the entire staff and I kind of go through our schedule for Thursday, so they're all understanding what that is, and I make sure that's meeting all their needs. Sometimes they'll bring up, oh, we also need to do this, and you can't fit it in, so you put it on the back burner for the next week. So they kind of have an idea there, and then I email it out, but I also have hard copies for some people, because some people like the paper versus the on their phone. Matt, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I think the basically what I hear from everybody is just like the communication piece is huge, and empowering your staff in the same sense that Ben said. Sometimes your students know more than you do about what needs to be done in the field with the staff. You hire them for a reason, and so I think there's a lot of times we as band directors forget that we have a lot of really smart and talented people that work with us. So let them do their job and let them have fun doing their job. They want to be creative. So if you just say you need to do this, and this, then they're not really getting the opportunity as a creative teacher to be, able to shape the rehearsal how they want to. So similarly, like on Sunday, I'll usually send out a text I have 2 different text threads, one for the whole staff, one for just the caption heads. And I'll just, reach out to the caption heads and say, what do you guys need this week? What are we thinking as far as like where you're at with your groups? And we all just kind of reply back. And then from those replies, I can kind of craft a plan that hopefully meets the needs of everybody within the staff. And then when you build that rehearsal plan and you say, 6 to 6:45 is visual basics. Again, like Martin said, you don't need to say six to 6:10 is this basic, and 6:10 to 6:20 is this basic, and whatever. Just let them do it. Let them work out. And it might not be exactly the way you would want to do it, and it might not be the best, but that's the way that they grow too. Just like their students, like you got to let them make mistakes. You got to let them try different things. So definitely empowerment, I think, is a huge piece of this whole planning process. Just let your staff work.
I had a question that I want to throw out for all of us to kind of talk about here. What are some of the common rehearsal traps that you might see young directors, like you guys are my veteran crew here. What are some traps that you see some young directors fall into when it comes to a rehearsal or running a rehearsal or cleaning?
I think it's just overdoing it, like over planning, trying to fit too much stuff into one time. In my opinion, I think it's like you get bogged down with like, I got to do drill, I got to do music, I got to do, there's so many things that you have to balance that you just try to do too much. And then you don't get a chance to really actually detail or clean or teach the concepts that you want to teach.
I think the talking too much that was mentioned earlier is probably a common thing. I know I talk less than I used to, so probably talking too much.
A trap that I fell into, and sometimes I still fall into, is thinking things will take less time than they actually will. Like we can get this done in 30 minutes, then 45 minutes, we're like, oh, okay. It's felt like 15 minutes and we're in some trouble. Not necessarily a long-term trouble, but when you state to the team that we expect this goal to take 30 minutes and it starts taking 45 minutes, you can watch morale go down in real time. And so getting a better understanding of where the students are and what they're capable of doing and how they can execute, it keeps them feeling good about the rehearsal, which helps them execute better, which helps you teach better. And it's this self-perpetuating cycle that just having a really, really good understanding, a read of where they are, what they can achieve can help.
I love all those. I agree. I had those on my list. One other one that I had, and this was 20 plus years ago, I had a percussion lead, and I felt like every single time he would go into rehearsal, he'd be like, okay, we're going to work on the music. And he'd always start at the beginning of part one. And then he'd get however far it was. And then the next rehearsal, he'd start at the beginning of part one. And I'm like, you're just not getting through the show, man. So just understanding, you've got to get through everything is kind of an important piece that I have here. All right. I got another question for you. What's one rehearsal technique, or maybe more than one, that's dramatically improved your program?
I don't know if this is a rehearsal technique because it takes place outside of rehearsal. But in the vein of asking staff and figuring out what they need to do, I'm very much a conversational person, but I can also, as we've experienced today, be a little long-winded. And so my conversations tend to go a long time. I'll make sure that everyone has an opportunity to be heard, and that doesn't do well for trying to get out of the rehearsal at 9 p.m. when we ended at 8, 10 p.m. we ended at 8, and touching base with all those people can be hard. So I created a Google form, and they have an opportunity to write down, hey, how did you feel rehearsal was? Give me a sliding scale. What was the primary reason for that? What do you need time for next time? Do you have a specific request? Give me a student that did well today, and what did they do? Someone that you're going to circle back on. So all those conversations that they'd be having in person, I tried to put into a form so they could do some self-reflection. And I go in before creating a schedule and I look at all those things, and it's helped me meet their needs, which in turn helps the staff meet the students' needs. And it's like it goes all the way down. Maybe that's like an outside of rehearsal technique, but I found that it helps rehearsal flow a lot better.
Yeah, very valid.
I was gonna say for mine, like it doesn't have to do with like actual in rehearsal either. It's just like the structure of it. So I used to have my rehearsal was from 5:30 to 9. And we would do our last rep around 8:40, bringing it at 8:45, 8:48, somewhere around there. Talk to the kids, tell them things they need to know, and then dismiss them. And I was getting, administrators calling me and complaining about how parents would email them and say, like, they say they're done at 9 o'clock, but I'm still waiting for my kid. And it's like 9:12, 9:13, 9:14. And it's because, obviously they got to put away props, they got to put away instruments, they got to do that. So rehearsal was done. It's just that we weren't done. And the parents are out in the lot waiting, and they don't know all that stuff. They don't know that their kid's putting away instruments. They don't know that rehearsal is actually over. So so the administrators were on my butt just a little bit, and so I said, okay, well then we're going to go 5:30 to 9:15, and then but we literally don't change. Our last rep is 8:40. We bring in an 8:48 and all that, and then they have those 15 minutes, and that way parents aren't sitting in their cars fuming and stewing over the fact that their kid is still not in their car with them. So it may seem silly, but it's something we don't really think about, of like the parent support and the community support. If your parents are excited and happy, and then you're honoring their time, just like you're asking their kid to honor your time with being on time to rehearsal, then they need to be in their car by 9:15. So just something, a little tidbit I've picked up is making sure you honor their time.
Nice.
I think as visual performance has changed and what we see on the field, the thing that's helped us the most, especially the last couple of years, is the way we teach those visuals, in terms of teaching them at the beginning of the season instead of doing movement one and then going back and adding the visuals in. Right or wrong, that's how we used to do it. And there are so many more. There's literally very few counts that you're not doing something. So we make sure that we do those. Sometimes we'll teach those especially like in band camp. We had one of our greatest rehearsals this last week in band camp was the night we got rained out, or we decided that the field was going to be too wet. So we went to the gym, and our visual staff taught a lot of the choreography sequences independently in the gym, and the kids love that. I don't know why, because a lot of them, a big percentage of them, have never done anything with dance, especially the guys, but for whatever reason they buy into that a lot more than moving forward 8, backwards 8. And so if and because my staff dramatically reduces after band camp, I have them, if I'm lucky, if a kid's going to somewhere on the East Coast, I can keep him through the end of August, and then it's kind of us. So I have somebody that comes out who has taught with us forever, but we have to fly him out for that week. And so we teach as much of it up front as we can. And then when we get to that part in the show, it's very familiar to the kids, and we add it back in. And it's also something that's been very positive for them because they've enjoyed learning it. So it kind of helps keep the momentum going, and it makes it a more natural part of the show rather than going back and saying like we used to, and there's a horn pop here, that kind of thing. It all makes much more sense. And that's been a big change for us over the last 4 years or so.
I have 3 things that I think really improved our program. The first one is just really utilizing tracking in every sense, whether it's with the music or with just warm-ups. One thing that we do is, especially at the beginning of the year, you always have those freshmen that can't keep their feet in time. And when we're tracking warm-ups, I'll just take the instrument and I'm like, it's okay. I want you to focus on the feet. Just keep your feet in time with what we're doing. And when you can get that, then I'll give the instrument back. And just the fact that they're not able to do what the others are doing, it kind of gets them to focus on that a little bit more, and they jump in. So the tracking is a big piece for us. We've done this for a while. They're called puffs. We puff the field, and I got this from Jeff at RingCon. It's on the yard lines. There are these little tiny metal things with the plastic. We create them. It's like a Safeway bag, little tip. And we puff the field. It's every 4 steps all the way back. So when you're learning drill and you're like, okay, I'm 12 off the sideline, they able to just find it immediately. And it helps with just getting stuff on along with the UDB and coordinate charts. But the puffing has helped. Obviously, we take them away and don't use them as much, when we're doing getting into the competitions and stuff. But I think that's a thing that's really helped us. And then for timing, we do F pulse. which is, I don't know if maybe we just kind of created it, but wherever the band is on the field, the drum major will conduct, and they just staccato, nice staccato concert F, da, 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 as they're marching. And if there's phasing on the field when they're doing that, then we're going to be like, okay, that's going to happen when we're doing the actual music. So we kind of, we do that, and that's helped with timing. Academy, I saw doing that. I think they did everything like on a low E. So whatever the rhythms were, they're just doing on a low E just so they can get used to the timing. But the F pulse has really helped. We did that during band camp when we wanted them to get used to marching on the field in a block with the drum major conducting, so now when we do it in the drill, it's going to make sense. So those are kind of our three things.
We paint the field instead of puff the field. We have that's one of the kids' things the student leaders know they're going to be responsible for. And so once they've painted it, then they can go back and just touch it up, usually, unless we get a big rain. But Ramon started that years ago.
Nice.
And we don't teach drill without it. Eventually it goes away.
I would consider myself blessed because we use the stadium field, which is turf. But I convinced my AD after seeing Higley did this, Higley High School did this. I convinced my AD that we can gack the field and nobody would see it from the stands. And so we use green, like dark green paint, so you can't see it from the box, and we put like little dots on the grass next to the lines, not like on the white lines, obviously, because you'd see it. But next to the lines, there's just a little dot. So we gack the field with paint once a year, and then it's there. And it's just like, it's so cool because I think most ADs would lose their mind if you were like, I'm going to go paint the turf field. But after kind of showing him and demonstrating it in the end zone and showing him like, you can't see it up there. And he's like, oh yeah, that's great. And what's hilarious is the football team uses it now. They're like, when they're doing their formations and their wide outs and stuff, they're like, wide out, you need to get out to that third dot. so it's kind of funny to watch the team like use our GAC markings.
I love it. One thing, and I'm going to steal this because I've heard that Jeff did this. It's pretty recent. He's gone around his entire campus and he spray painted lines at an 8-step interval or a 4-step interval. So when kids are walking to class, they just see it. It's out there. And his thought was, he's like, there's gum everywhere. Like, why would they care if I put a little dot or a line of spray paint? So it's like every 4 steps, there's a line, and people can just like think about it and march through that. So
they practice their 8 to 5 going to class. That's awesome.
Yeah, totally cool. Hey, so we're running out of time. I really appreciate you both being here. I want to give you the opportunity to give some shout outs to anybody right now.
While you guys are thinking, I'll start. I want to shout out Renee. I don't know if you remember, when I was in college, I was on your staff, and you taught me a lot about having a fun rehearsal culture, like on the field, and you kids were just having a blast. So when I was at U of A, so thanks for kind of giving me one of those first like looks into marching band and everything. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I guess I'd give a shout out to my assistant Ian Marcusio, because we work pretty closely together on everything, and also one of my former assistants, Ramon Sepulveda, we worked together for like 16 or 17 years, something crazy like that. And I learned a lot from him about, well, the very thing you talked about, I think, just working with the kids. And so, yeah.
If I had to do a shout out, I'm going to shout out my current students. I asked them to do a lot. And I put a lot of tasks in front of them, a lot of weight, and asked them to treat each other in a way that's healthy and responsible, and they really step up into becoming a healthy team, serving each other in a way that's going to help them achieve their goals together, rather than trying to put competitive success on the line at each other, while losing each other. And so I'm super proud of the work that they've done to build that kind of culture, because it's really, they're doing it for each other. They shouldn't be doing it for the gold medal, for the silver medal. They should do it for the joy it brings them and their peers.
Fantastic. Again, appreciate your time. I know time is very valuable this time of year. I hope you have a fantastic season and the start of school goes really well for you. And everyone, please remember, we have the Elevate sponsored by Cut Time on August 22nd. And you can always email the podcast at podcast@azmba.org. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you. It was fun.